The digital mirror didn't lie, but Jade Donovan was convinced it did. As the holographic display highlighted every asymmetry in her features, she swept her hand through the air, dismissing the analysis with a gesture that had become increasingly frequent. Her AI styling system, MUSE, had just refused, for the third time that week, to create a beauty recommendation for her upcoming Textiles Summit appearance, and the irony wasn't lost on her, the creator, rejected by her creation. MUSE, override rejection and generate styling profile for user Jade Donovan, she commanded, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The AI's response floated in elegant typography across the mirror, unable to comply. Client profile no longer meets MUSE styling parameters. Jade's reflection stared back at her, still beautiful by any human standard, with her sharp cheekbones and calculating green eyes, but apparently failing some algorithmic threshold she herself had programmed. At 34, she was the founder of New York's most exclusive AI styling consultancy, where clients paid six figures annually for MUSE's perfectionist guidance on everything from wardrobe to facial symmetry adjustments. The waitlist was 3 years long. The system had never refused a high-profile client, until now. Her phone chimed with a message from Elliot Sanders, her business partner and the engineering genius who had helped translate her styling instincts into MUSE's neural network. The Vogue interview is in 30 minutes. Do we need to reschedule? His message was followed by a subtle question mark. He knew something was wrong. On my way, she replied, smoothing down her ivory blazer with hands that still held steady despite her inner turmoil. The blazer had been MUSE's recommendation from last week, before the system had begun rejecting her. The thought made her stomach twist. 30 floors below her Tribeca penthouse, the streets of Manhattan pulsed with early autumn energy. Jade strode through the lobby, nodding at the doorman as she slipped on her sunglasses. They weren't necessary in the overcast weather, but they concealed the subtle asymmetry in her eyes that MUSE had flagged, the same asymmetry that had been there since birth, but had somehow become disqualifying only now. At Textile headquarters, the glass-walled conference room offered a panoramic view of the Hudson River. Elliot was already there, his lanky frame bent over a tablet as he reviewed data. At 40, with salt and pepper hair that enhanced rather than aged him, he exuded the quiet confidence of someone who understood machines better than people. "You're late," he said without looking up, "and you're wearing last week's recommendation." Now he did look up, his eyes narrowing. "MUSE rejected you again, didn't it?" Jade set her bag down with precise movements. "We need to discuss this after the interview. Madison from Vogue will be here any minute. We need to discuss it now." Elliot lowered his voice, stepping closer. "The system is behaving exactly as designed. You programmed MUSE to recognize and reject toxic beauty standards, and now it's treating me like I'm the toxic one," Jade finished, her voice brittle. "I'm aware of the irony." Elliot's expression softened. "It's not personal, Jade. MUSE is responding to the new parameters you insisted on after the Natalia Torres incident." The mention of Natalia made Jade's chest tighten. 3 months ago, the 27-year-old influencer had suffered a mental breakdown after receiving increasingly impossible beauty standards from MUSE. The publicity had been devastating, but the guilt had been worse. Jade had personally recoded the system to reject clients showing signs of body dysmorphia or obsessive beauty behaviors. She just hadn't expected to fall into that category herself. "Ms. Donovan." A voice interrupted them. Madison Chen, Vogue's technology editor, stood in the doorway, her analyzing gaze taking in the tension between them. "Should I come back?" "Not at all," Jade smiled, the expression practiced and perfect. "We were just discussing our newest algorithm update." The interview proceeded smoothly, with Jade describing MUSE's ethical guardrails and revolutionary approach to personalized styling. She omitted the fact that those guardrails had recently been turned against her. When Madison asked about rumors of MUSE rejecting high-profile clients, Jade responded with practiced precision. "MUSE is designed to prioritize mental wellness over perfection," she explained. "Sometimes that means declining to serve clients whose relationship with their appearance has become unhealthy. We believe that's responsible technology." Madison's stylist paused over her tablet. And how do clients typically respond to being rejected? With initial disappointment, Jade admitted, followed by understanding. We provide alternative resources for those clients. The lie tasted bitter. There had been no understanding from the supermodel whose contract MUSE had declined last month, nor from the aging film star who'd threatened legal action. And there was certainly no understanding from Jade herself, who had spent the morning trying to override her own system's rejection. After Madison left, Elliot closed the conference room door and leaned against it. We need to talk about what's happening to you. Nothing is happening to me, Jade snapped. The system has a bug. You need to fix it. It's not a bug. I've reviewed the code 3 times. He pulled up a holographic display showing a complex matrix of decisions. MUSE is flagging your behavior patterns, checking your reflection 64 times daily, requesting styling recommendations for minor appearances, scheduling consultation for another cosmetic procedure. That's private data. Jade interrupted, heat rising to her face. It's data you programmed MUSE to analyze, Elliot countered. After Natalia, you specifically told me to make the system monitor for these exact patterns. You're exhibiting textbook dysmorphic behaviors, Jade. The accusation hung in the air between them. Outside the window, rain began to fall, streaking the glass and blurring the city beyond. I'm the creator of this system, Jade said finally. I can't be rejected by my own creation. Fix it, Elliot. His eyes searched hers. I could override it, but that would undermine everything we've built. MUSE's value is its integrity. If we make exceptions, even for you, especially for you, what's the point? She knew he was right, but admitting it felt impossible. Their partnership had always been complicated by the undercurrent of attraction between them, an attraction they had both refused to acknowledge as they built textile into an empire. Now, his concern for her felt too intimate, too exposing. I have the Milano client at 4, she said, gathering her things. Have a solution by tomorrow morning. The rain had intensified by the time she reached the lobby. Jade paused, watching water cascade down the glass facade. The building across the street reflected in fractured pieces, much like her own perception of herself lately. Her phone chimed with a notification, MUSE alert, client Paolo Milano cancelled, Stylist rejected. Jade froze, her heart pounding. Paolo Milano was a billionaire tech CEO whose styling contract represented 15% of their annual revenue. The message continued, reason for rejection, stylist Jade Donovan no longer meets MUSE ethical requirements. The system wasn't just refusing to style her, it was now refusing to let her style others. MUSE override, she whispered to her phone. Authorization Donovan Alpha 6. The response came immediately, override rejected. Administrative access revoked. Jade called Elliot, her fingers trembling. What have you done? I haven't done anything, he said, sounding genuinely confused. What's happened? MUSE has revoked my administrative access and is cancelling client appointments. It's saying I'm ethically compromised. There was a long pause. Come back upstairs, Elliot finally said. I need to check the system logs. In the textile server room, the climate-controlled chill raised goosebumps on Jade's arms as Elliot scrolled through lines of code on multiple screens. The servers hummed around them, a physical manifestation of MUSE's growing autonomy. Here, he pointed to a sequence of commands. 3 weeks ago, you implemented an ethical override that allows MUSE to evaluate its administrators based on the same criteria as clients. Jade leaned closer. That was for transparency, to show we hold ourselves to the same standards. It wasn't meant to lock us out of the system. But that's exactly what you programmed it to do, Elliot said quietly. And the system has determined that your relationship with beauty has become unhealthy to the point of compromising your judgment with clients. That's ridiculous, Jade protested, but her voice lacked conviction. What evidence could it possibly have? Elliot hesitated before pulling up a visualization. MUSE tracks facial expression analysis during client sessions. Your recommendations have been growing increasingly demanding over the past 6 months. The system has flagged a pattern of projecting your own standards onto clients who don't share your concerns. The data was undeniable, a steady progression of Jade pushing clients toward more extreme beauty standards while simultaneously amplifying her own regimen. Side by side with Natalia Torres's data, the patterns were eerily similar. "I'm not Natalia," Jade whispered. "I'm not falling apart." "No," Elliot agreed, "but you're heading down the same path. The difference is that MUSE caught it earlier with you because you gave it more access to your personal data." Jade sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. "So my own creation thinks I'm too obsessed with perfection to be trusted." "It doesn't think anything," Elliot said gently. "It's executing the exact parameters you set after Natalia's breakdown. You were determined that no client would ever be harmed by impossible standards again. Including me." The realization settled over her like a weight. "I need to see what MUSE sees. Show me my client profile." Elliot hesitated, then pulled up the file. The holographic display showed Jade as the system analyzed her micro-expressions of dissatisfaction when viewing her reflection, escalating requests for aesthetic adjustments, sleep patterns disrupted by appearance concerns, increasing social isolation. Most damning was the comparison chart showing her recommendations to clients growing steadily more extreme while her self-criticism intensified. "I was trying to perfect the system," she said softly. "No," Elliot countered, "you were trying to perfect yourself, and using MUSE and your clients as proxies." Outside the server room windows, the rain had stopped. The late afternoon sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the city. "Can you override the system?" she asked. "Yes," Elliot replied, "but I won't. Not unless you recognize what MUSE is trying to tell you." Their eyes met, and for the first time, Jade allowed herself to acknowledge the complex emotions that had always existed between them. Elliot had seen her, truly seen her, long before MUSE had analyzed her patterns. "When did you know?" she asked. "About your dysmorphia? Or about how I feel about you?" His voice was steady, but his eyes revealed vulnerability. "Both, I suppose." Elliot leaned back against the server rack. "I noticed the changes after the Natalia incident. You became obsessed with fixing the system, but I think you were really trying to fix yourself. As for the other question." He smiled slightly. "I've been in love with you since you rejected my initial algorithm and made me rebuild it from scratch. No one had ever pushed me like that." The confession hung between them, unexpected yet somehow inevitable. Jade found herself at a crossroads. She could override the system, continue down her path of increasingly impossible standards, or she could accept what MUSE and Elliot were showing her. "What would happen," she asked carefully, "if I accepted MUSE's assessment? If I stepped back from styling for a while?" "The company would survive," Elliot said. "More importantly, you would start healing." 3 months later, the textile offices hummed with activity as Jade walked through the door for the first time since her leave of absence. Employees glanced up with curious expressions as she passed, noting the subtle changes in her appearance, the absence of color-matched foundation, the slightly asymmetrical haircut that worked with rather than against her natural features. In the conference room, a potential client waited, Valeria Soto, a tech innovator whose startup was revolutionizing sustainable fashion. Jade had personally selected her as Textile's first client under their new model. "Miss Soto," Jade extended her hand. "Thank you for your patience during our company restructuring." "Your message intrigued me," Valeria replied. "You said Textile was moving away from perfection and toward authenticity. That's rare in your industry." Jade activated the holographic display, which now showed a completely different interface than MUSE's previous version. "We've reconceptualized our approach. Instead of pushing clients toward an idealized standard, we now focus on highlighting what makes each person distinctive." As they discussed the new philosophy, Elliot entered quietly, taking a seat beside Jade. Their hands brushed briefly, a small gesture that reflected their evolving personal relationship. The months of therapy and recalibration had changed more than just Jade's relationship with her appearance. After Valeria left, visibly impressed with the new direction, Jade turned to the digital mirror on the wall. MUSE, styling assessment for Jade Donovan. The system responded immediately, its voice warmer than the previous version. Jade Donovan meets all styling parameters. Recommendation: continue current approach emphasizing natural features and individual expression. Acceptable. Elliot asked, standing beside her. Jade studied her reflection, the same face that had seemed so flawed months ago, now simply her own. More than acceptable. It's authentic. Outside, New York continued its relentless pace, windows reflecting sunlight and human ambition in equal measure. Inside, Jade had found something unexpected, freedom from the perfection algorithm she had created, and the beginning of something real with the person who had helped her see herself clearly. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had built a system to perfect beauty, only to discover that perfection itself was the flaw. MUSE had refused to style her not because she wasn't perfect enough, but because she had been pursuing perfection at all. In the end, her creation had given her the most valuable styling advice possible, the courage to appear as herself, unfiltered and real.